Okay. Okay. All right, sorry about that. We'd like to get started. My name is Sheila Morrow, and I am Mary Ellen's daughter, as well as I have worked with Mary Ellen for 13 years with Mind Wing Concepts. And we welcome you to this webinar today, 5 Elements of the Critical Thinking Triangle in Action. And we're glad that so many of you were able to join us live, and thank you also to those of you who will be watching the recording. Just one second, I'm having a little... Okay. Before we begin, we just want to say we will do our best to keep this webinar to 30 minutes. We have a lot of content, so we will not be able to respond to every question in real time. However, we will do so after the webinar is over if you'd like to hang on with us. Please stay until the end, the very end of this webinar. At the very end, we will offer a free 6-page handout with lessons and activities that are used in this webinar. And believe me, you don't want to miss that handout because it's wonderful, and it will not be posted until the end. Also at the end, a survey. After the webinar is over, a survey is going to pop up, and everyone who answers will be put into a drawing to win an 18 by 24 critical thinking triangle poster. And there's Mary Ellen modeling that poster for us. I just want to quickly say as an introduction that Story Grammar Marker is 25 years old this year. Mary Ellen created it in 1991, and this is a wonderful picture of Mary Ellen in the newspaper when she first created Story Grammar Marker. And you can see she's gone on to create many, many other materials, including the most recent set of tools revolving around the critical thinking triangle that we're going to be working with today. This was something that Mary Ellen won an award for 5 years ago, the Boise Peace Quilt Project Award, for her work with children in the area of conflict resolution and social communication. And that was exciting because that really all revolved around the critical thinking triangle. And this was from 2 years ago when Mary Ellen received the Alice H. Garside Lifetime Achievement Award from the International Dyslexia Association for her leadership, service, and achievement in the area of helping children with dyslexia and language learning disabilities. And this critical thinking triangle in action method that she has recently developed to really enhance the critical thinking triangle aspect of the Story Grammar Marker is really just going to make this even more powerful. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ellen. I just want to say that we had a little glitch with our video component, so we're going to do our best, but bear in mind if there is a problem when we're doing the webinar, then it will be, we will send you a link to the video component when we send you the recording. So don't worry that you're missing out on something. And I'll hand this over to Mary Ellen.
Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be here with you tonight. I just wanted to show the whole Story Grammar Marker here on the side, and I trust that most of you who are logged into this evening will know all of the components that go into it. The critical thinking triangle is the part that we're going to talk about tonight. It's composed of the kickoff, the feeling, the plan, and the mental states, thought bubble. As you look at the Story Grammar Marker here, without the critical thinking triangle, what is left is the character, the setting, and the actions, because without a plan, the consequence bow and the reflection or the resolution bow, heart at the bottom are not there either. And what I noticed at the beginning of everything 25 years ago was that so many children in 4th and 7th grade, when they wrote something or told their own personal narrative, that it was a series in a setting and didn't include sometimes even the kickoff, but definitely not the feelings or the plans or consequences. So this aligns this if we put the kickoff in, it aligns with the traditional story graphic organizer where there's a problem, and then there are events, and then there's a solution, which we've blackened in the bow there for. But oftentimes I notice that the events that kids put in didn't really relate to the solution. And then, of course, as you look at it, there's no place for the motivation of the character, no place for the feelings, the plans, and the mental states, as you see right there. So this is a picture of myself near 25 years ago, where I was still using a chalkboard and a green board, and I was drawing the critical thinking triangle. As you notice, I'm not an artist. And I had the word know in the middle for the mental states, what the character knows. So that's how I used to teach it to children, and they would respond, and I'd go back and forth with them. Now, this is our new product that we created really just as a response to this webinar. There was so much of an interest in the critical thinking triangle, and my work with some 2nd grade boys that spanned the summer, and I just held another session with them last week. Here's a thinking cap with the little story grammar marker guy and the components of the critical thinking triangle on his head. So what is it? The critical thinking triangle is what is missing, and it's what sets the story grammar marker apart. It is vital for inferential skills. And what do classroom teachers want to do? Is to teach inference. Often the feelings, the mental states, and the plans are not stated by authors, and they're very invisible to children when they're observing a personal narrative situation. The critical thinking triangle is focused on character motivation, inference generation, perspective taking, because in response to one kickoff, there could be several feelings and plans, and people think different ways. A lot of children don't know that people think differently from them. Practice with classroom discourse using cohesive ties. If you look at the arrows along the critical thinking triangle, you'll see the conjunctions that are vital for beginning narratives. Theory of mind, which is getting into the mind of another person, entering the community of minds. Critical thinking, thinking critically. Of course, the critical thinking triangle is critical. It's necessary for problem solving, because when there's a problem, people may have different feelings, thoughts, and plans on ways to solve. Conflict resolution, of course, is a big deal, and the conflict would be the kickoff. Social communication is where many, many children fall short. They are unable to include or even think about the feelings, the mental states, and the plans. So this graphic we showed the last time, and we had such a response, people thinking it was so wonderful. At the very surface of this is the story grammar marker. And some people just use the story grammar marker and have the kids talk through a story like that. Midway is the developmental sequence, which lets you know where children are and helps you to plan your lessons relative to where each child is. You know, Vygotsky's zone of proximal development from one level to another. And at the very bottom is the depth of thinking that is involved in the critical thinking triangle. And without it, things are just a series of actions. So what are the 5 elements? The first element is the kickoff. What caused the story? In classrooms, it's called the problem. the feeling, which is the mental state, the feeling, which is the emotion that the character identifies with. The mental state verbs, otherwise known as thinking verbs or thought verbs, those are the things that we used in the lesson that we hope will show up today with the second grade boys. Know, think, remember, realize are the beginning verbs that we use. These are academic vocabulary words that children need to know in order to progress in school. And then the plan is the fourth stage, where a character stops and thinks and makes the plan. The fourth element, and then the fifth element are the cohesive tie words that are written here on the arrows. So if we take each element in particular, when Sheila and I were going over this for this webinar tonight, we thought of all the versatility and the different people that we have who use the story grammar marker, from the field of education to the field of counseling, school adjustment counseling, children with anxiety problems. So we were thinking, what is the kickoff called in all those situations? For the story grammar marker, the kickoff is the kickoff. In the research term for narrative development, it's called the initiating event, because of course it doesn't have to be a problem. In school, though, it's always called the problem in the story. Adolescent literacy, when there's a plot diagram or a plot mountain, will call it the rising action. A counselor may call it the trigger. In social thinking, Michelle Garcia Winner calls it the unexpected. Psychology research almost always calls it a breach. It's called the cause, it's called the problem. In persuasion, it's the issue or the concern, and an argument is the issue. Conflict resolution, we have to identify the conflict, and in social communication, it's a problem. So in overlapping fields, this is why we put this here, because there are many collaborative efforts going on in education, in social communication, social emotional growth, and Carol Westby just wrote a recent article in Language, Speech, and Hearing Association, Language, Speech, and Hearing Services in Schools, about personal narratives and the value of those. So the kickoff is signaled by suddenly, or all of a sudden, or one day. The second element is the feelings, and of course the feelings have similar names but are treated a little differently among all of the disciplines. We call them feelings, and we call them universal feelings. We've always taught the 6 universal feelings, and social feelings as well. Here are the universal feelings: happy, sad, mad, scared, surprised, and disgusted. Notice the eyebrows, they make the difference. And the social emotions, unlike basic emotions, social emotions are also called higher cognitive emotions, such as guilt, shame, pride, and envy, jealousy. They are not easy to show on people's faces. They are less innate than basic emotions. They're more abstract, and they may be culturally dependent. They definitely are dependent on the situation that is shown in either the story or the social situation. This is the front and back of our new bookmark that children can use to learn synonyms for the basic emotions, and then some basic social emotions that are a combination of some of the basic emotions. Element 3 are the mental state verbs. These are the thoughts. We call them thinking verbs or thought words. They are academic vocabulary, as I said. The research term is cognitive verbs, since cognitive means thinking. Internal dialogue, perspective taking, factive and non-factive mental states. All of the disciplines have words for them, but what they are and what we're teaching today is mental states, thinking verbs. Here they are in our little cards that we have that you're going to see in the lesson with the second grade boys. What do you think? Thinking is a word for a mental state rather than something that you say. What do I know for a fact? Knowing means that there is something that you have factual. Remembering is a recall of something from the past, which we often use if we're telling a personal narrative or an autobiographical narrative. What do I understand? Personal experience and observations. If I have enough personal experiences and I observe enough things concerning a topic, I begin to understand the workings of it. And ultimately, I realize by pulling those mental state words, know, remember, and understand, I realize something. Element 4 is the plan. And the plan, remember, is signaled by a stop sign with a hand. To stop, think, and make a plan. Just watch, look at all of the words for planning. Want, decide, intend, desire, and need. All of those words cross the disciplines. That's the fourth component. Stop, think, make a plan, and tell yourself the plan. I have children do that. I have them stop. And if you would kind of do that with me, stop with your best stop look. Think, put your hand right up to your head to think about it. Make a plan. When I have the plan made, the kids turn their hand as if they're looking at this hand in the stop sign. And then tell yourself the plan. It's almost like a talk back where I have the kids practice their plan, and when they talk into the palm of the other hand, it sounds different to them and they love it. So those are the steps about you get to the plan, but you have to go back to the mental states to think about it. Element 5 are the cohesive ties. Cohesive ties are gluing the sentences together. They're the linguistic words that we use to connect the content of our story. And without the cohesive ties, there is just not a story that hangs together. So those are very, very important. They are conjunctions primarily. They're additives such as and then. Temporal, first, next, after that. If a child stays at the temporal sequence, all he or she is doing are naming the actions or talking about the actions in the pictures. Causal chain, so and because is where we want children to get. To the causal chain where they're identifying the kickoff and using words like so and because. Adversative is but. It changes from a positive to a negative. And the cohesive ties are so important that we dedicated a whole product to them. And here are 3 teachers from a workshop we did this fall demonstrating the cohesive tie activity, which is combining sentences together. Now, the lesson that we're doing revolved around 3 second grade boys, and there they are in their picture. My grandson Jerry on the left, his friend Isaiah in the middle, and his friend Frankie on the right. And they're holding some of the icons from the story grammar marker, and they certainly enjoyed themselves this summer when they came, and they enjoyed themselves the other day when they came, and they all said they wanted to come back and bring their own stories this time. So I thought that was a relative success. The book that I've been using with them and going back to, and that is emphasized in your 6-page handout, is called Those Shoes by Mary Beth Boltz. And what I did today, I wanted to talk about just the synopsis of it. It's I have dreams about those shoes. Black high tops, 2 white stripes. All Jeremy wants is a pair of those shoes, the ones that everyone at school seems to be wearing. But Jeremy's grandma tells him that they don't have room for want, just need. And what Jeremy needs are new boots. When Jeremy's shoes fall apart at school, the guidance counselor gives them a hand-me-down pair. The boy is more determined than ever to have those shoes, even a thrift shop pair, that are much too small. But sore feet aren't much fun, and Jeremy comes to realize that the things he has, warm boots, a loving grandma, and the chance to help a friend, are worth more than the things that he wants. So what I was thinking of with the boys is when they did their lessons this summer, all they focused on was the fact that the other kids made fun of Jeremy when he came back from the guidance counselor's office wearing the hand-me-down shoes. And the only one who didn't laugh was his friend Antonio. That resonated with the boys, and they felt that the other kids were wrong and that there should have been someone who stood up for Jeremy, and I thought that that was wonderful. But they didn't get the depth of the decision-making that Jeremy had to go through when he ultimately decided to give his shoes, although they were too small, to give them to his friend Antonio, whose shoes were also taped together. And it was this lesson that is the intent of this lesson and our whole new product, was to help kids who need the thought process made concrete. It's such an abstract thing to think about feelings and plans and mental states. We wanted to help them make connections by thinking about the word remember, the word know, and the word understand. This did it. They just loved the lesson. So the critical thinking triangle helps take them from the concrete, which they see, the situation in front of them, to the abstract. Story structure is made visible by concrete visual icons, very meaningful icons, to hang ideas on and keep track of the relationships among the components as the discussion progresses from concrete actions of a story to the abstract thoughts, motivations, and intentions of characters that often must be inferred. And I underline the word inferred because teachers will often say the children don't know how to infer. They have to be taught to infer. They may have it in their head, but they just can't carry it out. So this is where we took the book. This is, after going through the character, the setting, this is the new Kickoff. The old Kickoff was that Jeremy didn't have any shoes like the other kids, and he needed to get them. So his grandmother did take him shopping, and he got some. They were too small. Here he is at night with those shoes that are too small next to him and at the bottom of his bed, and he is thinking. I had the boys think of take a piece of text. I'm just going up to my board in back of me, and I'm taking this page from the text. I had them take the page, which it says, that night I am awake for a long time thinking about Antonio. That makes it something mental, a mental state. And they circled the word, and then because they're second graders, they wanted to draw, which is one of the things in the Common Core, where for second grade, it says, create stories and add drawings to other visual displays to stories or recounts of experience when appropriate to clarify ideas, thoughts, and feelings. They drew thought bubbles out of Jeremy's head. So I just thought it was fabulous when I saw that they were doing that naturally. So anyway, these boys, we needed something to make concrete. So these were some of the things, and you see them behind me that I used. The critical thinking triangle poster, the magnets that some of you might have from Story Grammar Marker, all of the characters, and of course each of them had different perspectives, and we are going to continue our lessons on this. Some of the little activities I did are included in your handout. And then at the bottom, right, is where the critical thinking triangle student thinking map, which is part of our new tool, with pouches to put ideas in for feelings and mental states. That is there on the board. And here they are. The boys are with me at the table doing their activity. We have a sentence frame completed at the bottom where Frankie wrote that Jeremy remembered that Antonio wasn't laughing at him. So we wanted to do now a little video of the boys, just a short one, and we'll see if it works.
Okay. And we are going to, so give me 1 minute here to get to the video. And right after that, Mary Ellen will be showing a couple of things. Okay.
That the shoes were too small. Now Isaiah, what word do you have? Understand. Understand. And it's here that he learns to understand. Now, would you look up here, Frankie? He goes out and he watches. Here he is. He's watching Antonio and notices, hey, okay, that he has tape on his shoe. They play basketball, and look what he's looked at. He notices what? That every time his feet hits the ground. Yeah, and they said snap. The shoe, the tape, snap to what? Give the shoes or not? Give the shoes. Give the shoes. Give the shoes. He gave the shoes to Antonio. And how did he do that? He tried them on for the last time. He tried them on, then he made a plan to give them. He took them to Antonio's house. He left them off, and he ran away. And then he saw Antonio at school. At school, Antonio is smiling in his big, brand new shoes. I feel happy when I look at his face, and mad when I look at my Mr. Elf's shoes.
We're going to stop it right there, and when we are able to get on to do the recording, we are going to give you access to looking at more of this, because as I mentioned, there's a little bit of a technical glitch, but I also want to be able to show you a little bit of Mary Ellen and her recap with the boys. I think that would be helpful for you to see. And I don't know if a lot of you saw, I sent a message that we're probably going to be 6 or 7 minutes after the ending time. So right here, we're just going to show one more clip. And like I said, when we send you the recording, we'll be able to send you a more full version of the boys.
Now I'd like you to just put on your best listening ears, fold your hands, and I told you I was going to recap and talk about what we did today, just very quickly so that the teachers will know what we did. Okay, first of all, we reviewed a little bit of Those Shoes by Mary Beth Boltz and Noah Jones. And when I talk about reviewing, I talked about using the story grammar marker, and you used your story grammar markers, and we talked about the beginning of the story when Jeremy was at home and in his community. And all he did was see people wearing those shoes. He felt strongly that he needed to get those shoes, so he made a plan to talk to Grandma about it. And so we know the things that he did. He got the shoes with his own money, and he felt wonderful about it. Now that's where we're going to come up in this story. We're going to take the next episode. And remember, we talked about all the characters in the story. We talked about Jeremy, we talked about his grandma, his classmates, Antonio, his friend, and Mr. Alfred, who was the guidance counselor. We talked about the setting. Remember, Jeremy lived in a city, and you live in cities. And Jeremy, we also compared and contrasted cities and the country, right? We talked about the kickoff for Jeremy. The kickoff we just talked about when I retold. This is the kickoff for him. He had to make a decision. And look what we have. We took some of the text right out of the book. And I asked you to circle the word thinking. And this is just a sample of one of yours where Jerry circled the word thinking. And he also drew a little picture of Antonio with the thought bubble there thinking. So that's when we go into the text for evidence, and you remember evidence. Remember that well, just as you remember giving the details for the character description. So here we have Antonio thinking about, Jeremy thinking about Antonio. And as he was doing that, he was kind of feeling sad. I think I'm going to probably take this up here. He was feeling sad. He was feeling glum. We talked about glum. He was feeling discouraged. These are all synonyms for sad. He was feeling unhappy. He was really miserable. And another feeling that he had was confused, which is a little bit of sad and a little bit of angry. All right. So, now remember.
Okay, and like I said, we're going to be able to show you a little bit more of that. We've just got a few slides left here, and I'm going to turn it back over to Mary Ellen so she can finish up, and then I'll come right back at the end to send you your handout and talk to you about a couple of additional aspects of the critical thinking triangle in action.
I wanted to include my recap as a little part of the action because a recap is always necessary for the kids. And what is on your screen now are the sentence frames that I was using with them. I used just the mental state sentence frames in the lesson. But there's a way to develop sentence frames. First, you ask questions about the kids, to the kids. Did they get the kickoff, the feeling? Was the feeling related to the kickoff? Did they get the thoughts? Did they get the plans? Were they missing any of that so that you could work on it? And then when we want to put them into sentences, these are the probes to get started. The kickoff happened, whatever happened, so I or the character felt a certain way, and that's the beginning one. Then as we progress, we keep adding a new part to the critical thinking triangle to our sentences. And I can't tell you how many people have said to me, my student has improved in his sentence structure so much since we've started to use Brady or the story grammar marker. And I always think it's because of working memory issues. There is so much to remember and think about when you're trying to formulate these increasingly complex sentences. So that's why these are on your screen, and they're also in our new tool. These are the thinking verbs, little sentence frames. And if you notice, they're long, thin rectangles. We can construct we have sentence frames here where you can cut those little rectangles out and insert them directly in the middle of a sentence so that you can talk about if the verb is remember or know or think, you can put it right in. So that's just an added feature. There are so many times we need to do sentence combining in school. Sentence combining with other than and is a huge thing. And the ability to express a mental state is huge for argument, for persuasion, for social studies. And it's not enough to know the word think or remember or know. You have to be able to know that a character does such and such. The line there represents what the character, either you or the other character, has in his or her head. In other words, what the thought is. So it's very important to really be able to put them into sentences. One component that I've included in the slide here, but also in the product, is a scale of good, better, and best about the kickoff, the feeling, the thoughts, the plans, and the critical thinking triangle in general. It's very good for creating scales, learning scales, objectives, what the children have to know, because children should know what they're doing, and it helps us track where the children are. So here are just some samples. So the kickoff, named with a Q, recognized and stated independently, related to the kickoff and the setting, related to the character and the setting, and the kickoff stated and clearly related to the feeling and the plan, which would be a number 4. A 3 might be your target, and in order to get them there, you often have to begin with 1. So I just thought that those are huge, and anybody who's tracking data and using things like John Hattie's effect scores, these are very useful in that area. So we've developed over the period of 25 years many, many tools to help you, to help children develop their personal narratives and fictional narrative abilities so that they can orally communicate and then build writing.
So I would just sit back down for a second.
Yes.
Sorry, Mary Ellen.
Okay.
A couple people had a question, just if you could show this a little more clearly and closely, what the pockets are.
The pockets are little holders that hold the feeling words here. And so children can just say he had a problem. He couldn't decide what to do. That caused him to feel confused. Jeremy was confused because he had a problem and couldn't think of what to do, whether to give or not give the shoes to Antonio. This pocket is used for the thinking that has to go on before a character is able to make a plan. And these thinking words were, first, he was in bed thinking about Antonio, which was a mental state, not something he said. Frankie had the part that was, what did Jeremy remember from a while ago? He remembered that Antonio didn't laugh at him in the classroom. Jerry had the word know. What did the character know? He knew that the shoes were too small, and there's a picture in the book of Jeremy's band-aided feet, blistered feet. Then Isaiah had, what did the character understand? And he understood because he went to the park with Antonio and saw Antonio jump off the swings, and his tape was hitting the black top. Everything they did was increasingly aware that Antonio needed shoes. So he understood that Antonio needed the shoes, and then I took the boys together and I said, because Jeremy remembered something, because he knew something for a fact, and he experienced things that made him understand something, he realized that he should help his friend and give him his shoes. So this is what this looks like. And the kids just love it. It gets them into making something very abstract, very concrete.
And another question that somebody had was just about what age do you typically start teaching critical thinking triangle to students?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know that little children around the age of 4 begin to think about mental states and what they want and what they intend, and they think about feelings and all those things, but they don't know how to express them. And if they have parents or caretakers or people who ask them those things, who bring them out, who say, what do you think that character's thinking, or how does he feel, what does his face show? You can begin very early talking about feelings and the nonverbal body language that are communicated by feelings. But I begin to really work the boys in 2nd grade, you know, in the Common Core and in state standards, that states that don't have the Common Core. There's great attention to feelings and thoughts of characters by 2nd grade. So this is very vital to do. And I was at a school around Boston in the spring where the teachers were using the critical thinking triangle to go through a novel. Of course, there were multiple characters who had multiple kickoffs happening. Each character was having a different feeling, and it just made things very, very visible and concrete.
We can answer a couple more questions in a minute, but I'm just going to finish up.
Sheila's going to finish up.
A few people messaged me that they have to get going, so I want to make sure that that those of you who are having to leave will be able to get access to what we're talking about. So what I have here is just thank you for joining us. Mary Ellen kind of gave you the what and the why of the critical thinking triangle, and now you can have the how with these materials that have now been created. This is actually our newest set of materials, and I have a special offer for you. You, the people that are on this webinar live right now, can get 25% off until midnight tonight. That's whatever time zone you're in. Using the code CTT25 at the checkout. Don't worry, you don't have to remember this. I've got it clicked in for you. Or if you're someone who's watching this on the recording, we didn't want you to be completely left out of a special offer for this amazing new set of materials. So you will have off until October 28th at midnight. Just visit mindwingconcepts.com, and right on our homepage you'll see webinar attendees. Click here. And I just want to show you, this is option 1, and this will be roughly $56 with the 25% discount. This gives you everything in our new critical thinking triangle in action set. And in addition to that, the Making Connections manual that's part of our social communication collection, because the Making Connections manual has all of the many maps and lessons and handouts and everything having to do with the critical thinking triangle, using it for various reasons. So that's one option. The second option is getting this new set, the critical thinking triangle and action set, and that's $39.95, but again, you'd get 25% off, so that brings it down considerably. And then the third option is if you're someone who's relatively new to Story Grammar Marker or new to using the critical thinking triangle, and you just kind of want to get a taste of what this is and have some visuals to work with, you can get this. This is $16.95. It comes down to roughly $12, $11 when you get the discount. You get Story Grammar Marker mini magnets, and then you get 4 mini posters with these really bright, engaging visuals. I'm just going to quickly show you, again, this is what comes with this set of materials. And I think if you can sort of see here, it comes with a manual, a very extensive manual. It comes with mini posters. It comes with 4 of the pocket charts so that you can work with multiple students. It comes with thought bubbles and feeling word pocket manipulatives, I guess we would call them. And there's directions in the guides of how to use all of these. It comes with sentence strips that you can reproduce. Everything is reproducible. It comes with bookmarks, and it comes with 60 feelings cards, and it also, and these are all in here, and it comes as well with thought bubble cards, and you can do everything that you saw Mary Ellen do with this set of materials. Now, what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to give you the, we're going to be able to give you in the handout what Mary Ellen did in that lesson, and we're also, if you were able to get the handout, it's posted right now. Once we end the webinar, you won't have access to it, so please click where it says handout and download that right now. And then after the fact, when we get the recording all set up, we're also going to send you the recording of the boys and Mary Ellen with the lessons so that you can use that handout in conjunction with it and try this yourself. And it's really quite amazing. All you have to do is go to mindwingconcepts.com in order to be able to get it. And I just want to click to the, for some reason, okay. This here is just how to reach us on social media. We would love for you to continue to connect with us. And this is how to reach Mary Ellen. If you would like to speak with her in person or email her, she's always open to hearing from you. I'm going to have her pop back on right now because we said at the end she would answer a couple more of the questions that you had. So if you have to log off, and remember that there's going to be a survey that will pop up. If you answer the question on the survey, you will be entered to win the large critical thinking triangle poster that we showed you at the beginning. So I'm going to have Mary Ellen pop back over here. If you can't stick with us, that's not a problem. We so appreciate you bearing with us and understanding that we have a little bit of technology while with showing a video on a video, and we're going to work on those glitches. In addition to that, this will be closed captioned. It's something that a colleague of ours out in Oregon asked us if we would do, and we thought it was a fabulous idea. And so the recording will be closed captioned. So if you have any colleagues that that would be appropriate for, please let them know, and I'll have Mary Ellen pop back on right now.
Thanks, Sheila, and thank you all for staying with us.
Okay. Do you use this with children with autism who have significant language impairments?
I use the story grammar marker with children. I try to do that. With some of the children, I can get them to give me the kickoff and the feeling connected. I try to talk with them through children's literature about feelings that are on people's faces, etc. Okay.
And we have a whole social communication.
Yeah. And oh, yes, and you know, we do have an autism collection, a social communication collection that I developed just for that, for high-functioning students.
Okay, how would you explain where this fits into a teacher in the classroom?
Oh, a teacher in a classroom, that, you know, during the literacy period, the time that they're doing their reading retellings, oftentimes people have one of the first, of course I've always been in the classroom, and one of the first questions that came to be when people started to ask for retellings, Fountas and Pinnell and the DRA and everything, it became evident that children should retell. And it wasn't for the purpose of oral language development, it was for the purpose of showing whether they comprehended or not. And so many children could answer the WH questions if you stood there and you scaffolded them. But they were really remiss in their retellings. And they were getting to high levels in the DRA by their decoding. So they could decode and they could reach a level and then they couldn't retell it. So that's one of the ways I'd use it. And I would just use it with whatever curriculum I had. We have in our manuals, each manual has lists of children's books that we recommend to teach and model and explicitly teach. But you can use whatever the teacher is using in the classroom. If it's a story, it is somewhere along the story grammar continuum of plot development. So I'd use it there for retellings. I would use it also for helping kids who don't know the components of a story at all. I would use it for writing, for helping children develop the small moment, for instance, in the Columbia University program on writing. A lot of our kids can't get to the small moment in different writing programs, or think of an exciting beginning. They can't get to the situation. So they need to begin their oral language development component to reach the writing component. So I would use it in the literacy block for retelling, for writing, and just for discussion. I would have children turn and talk and use the mats and talk about the story. What happened? What was the kickoff? One of them can be in charge of that. You could have a group of 4 children, one in charge of each of the components. When they get together, they each have a part to talk about. So that's how I'd use it.
Another question is, are there materials for early elementary school?
The thought bubble certainly would be very, very valuable for early elementary school. Brady, of course, Brady the Story Braid is the tool that we have for early elementary school, but just even using the thought bubble and the feeling bubbles and talking about thoughts and feelings and then making the connection between the feeling and the kickoff, and then the feeling and the plan, the feeling and the mental state word. What does the character know, for instance? Just talking about those simple things. Often children begin with just a sentence. You know, the kickoff is such and such. The feeling is such and such. Very young children might do that. And then I would try to teach them to say that when such and such happened, the character felt such and such. Just that basic sentence structure.
Okay. Just someone asking how you would talk to students about cohesive ties.
Cohesive ties, I would talk to them about these are the things that make the sentence stick together. And in the cohesive tie activity, I have the kids either hold hands, that jar that I showed a while ago. I either have the children hold hands or they touch elbows to connect with the word on the cohesive tie. So one child wears the cohesive tie and it might have the word so. And the kickoff is Mary wanted to go to the mall, so she, and the other person says what it is, and then everybody repeats the sentence. Mary wanted to go to the mall, so she asked her mother for a ride. And then I might add but, and I might say Mary wanted to go to the mall, so she asked her mother for a ride, but the car had a flat tire. So we could go on like that. So cohesive ties means sticking together. So I have the kids either hold hands or touch elbows to show that the parts of the sentence are sticking together too. It's a very early way to show sentence combining. And you know that sentence combining is one of the recommended activities for writing. So, what about that now?
We'll have to get back to people. Let's see. One more question, I think. What is the difference between stating the plan and stating the action sequence? That's a great question because we have that question all the time.
Well, the plan, now if we look at the plan is the umbrella for the series of actions. The series of actions are the steps you take to carry out the plan and arrive at the goal, which is the bow at the bottom. There are a lot of kids with executive function problems, for instance, who know a plan, but they can't, even though they could sequence actions, they can't put the actions of their plan in order to get to their goal. So that's one issue. But in general, the plan is what the character wants. The series of actions that come below the plan are what the character actually does to carry out that plan. So the character may want to buy a new dress, and then the actions would be the steps that she took to go first to the mall, to get out of the car, to go into the store, and all those things. So there is a big difference. The plan is more abstract than the actions. The actions are the things that actually carry out the plan. So,
one final thing, and I don't know if people can see you or not, because the webinar, I'm not sure if people can still see you, but if they can, they would like to know what the yellow frame was that the kids were holding up in the picture.
Yes. That was a component of one of the summer lessons that I did with the children. It's 5 tongue depressor type size popsicle sticks glued with just a glue dot, and the kids hold it in front of their face and show their feeling. But they can also put it on a picture of a character. For instance, here's Grandma in the shoe store when she's realizing that the shoes don't fit. What does Grandma look like? And I have found that this little 5 popsicle stick frame has helped children to zero into what I want them to look at as far as facial expressions that would lead them to know what a character's feeling is, and how one character may have a feeling of confusion and the other character has a realization that things are not going to work here. So I use this a lot, and the kids enjoy it, which is why they wanted to pose. One of them, Jerry, wanted to pose with this in the picture. So thanks for asking about that. So you can go to a craft store and just get a bag of those.
And a couple people asked if we could do more and more of these, and we'd like to say that we will be planning to do more and more. And if we can do
Yes, and I would be very happy to do more of these once we get all our technology and everything all set. I am going to be at ASHA, the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association. We're going to be at booth 636 in case you want to see our materials and talk to us. I'm going to be giving demonstration lessons. This summer I was at ASHA schools in Minnesota and presented there. So anyway, I'm very happy that you like these. It gives me a chance to touch more people, even though we've traveled extensively this summer and spring. But anyway, I'm glad to have you join us, and thanks a lot.
And thank you to all the people who have already, we're very excited to hear results from all the people that have already ordered.
Yes, and thanks for people who have already ordered materials. We just put them together because they are something that can get you to make an abstract concept concrete. That's something you can tell the classroom teacher as well, as far as their reading lessons and literacy lessons. So thanks a lot.
Go enjoy it.
Yes, enjoy the debate. Not only have we been planning today, but Hillary and Donald Trump have been planning today as well.
Thank you so much. Have a great night. And if you have any problems with anything, please contact either Mary Ellen or you can contact me, Sheila. You can just contact either of us at info@mindwingconcepts.com if that's the easiest one to remember. So just have a great night.